Drop it. Power panel. Jake Huger, John Irola, Adrian Lawrence. Is everybody checking out the damage report? Is everybody checking out Rebel headquarters for Adrian's videos? Are people doing that? They need to be doing it instantly. Go now. No, I'm kidding. Stay here and then watch it later. Okay, so we got a hell of a show for you guys today. Tons of news, and these days the news is both completely dispiriting and hilarious at the same time. So this first hour has super important stories. Is there a false flag operation? Is it Russia or Alex Jones? We don't know. Okay, we're gonna figure it out. And then in the bonus episode for the members has one of my favorite stories from today. A bisexual turtle having at it, and it's not Mitch McConnell. So, all right, okay, so as you can tell, we're gonna have fun tonight. Yes. All right, having said that, let's talk about World War III. John, take it away.
Woohoo, choo choo, we're heading towards it, okay. Yesterday, the United States revealed what it is calling a plot by Russia to fabricate evidence of a supposed attack by Ukraine that would then be used as a justification for Russia to attack in retaliation. Here's what they're saying. Pentagon spokesman John Kirby said the scheme included production of a graphic propaganda video that would show staged explosions and use corpses and actors depicting grieving mourners. So they say that this isn't just a hypothetical thing. They have already seen evidence of it. This is something that is maybe now being headed off by the US revealing it, or maybe it wasn't quite ready to go, but they swear it was definitely something that was happening. And again, according to the United States government via the Associated Press, US intelligence shows Russia has launched a malign social media disinformation campaign against Ukraine and has dispatched operatives trained in explosives to carry out acts of sabotage against Russia's own proxy forces. So they would do a social media offensive backed up by, I guess, intentional friendly fire, or at least the idea of friendly fire against their own forces. So the US government very worried about this. But there are some issues, especially if you are familiar with the United States government and its intelligence apparatus. So there was a spokesperson from the State Department doing a press conference and got into it with Associated Press reporter Matt Lee. And you take a look at this video and we'll see what you think afterward.
Russia continues to engage in disinformation campaigns.
You made an allegation that they might do that. Have they actually done it?
What we know, Matt, is what I have just said, that they have engaged in this activity, in this planning activity. But let me because obviously this is not the first time we've made these reports public. We told you a few weeks ago that we have information indicating Russia also has already prepositioned a group of operatives to conduct a false flag operation in eastern Ukraine. So that, Matt, to your question, is an action that Russia has already taken.
It's an action that you say that they have taken, but you have shown no evidence to confirm that. And I'm going to get to the next question here, which is, what is the evidence that they, I mean, this is like crisis actors, really? This is like Alex Jones territory you're getting into now.
Matt, this is derived from information known to the US government, intelligence information that we have declassified. I think you know.
Okay, well, where is it? Where is this information?
It is intelligence information that we have declassified.
Well, where is it? Where's the declassified information?
I just delivered it.
No, you made a series of allegations and statements.
Would you like us to print out the topper? Because you will see a transcript of this briefing that you can print out for yourself.
That's not evidence, Ned. That's you saying it. That's not evidence. I'm sorry.
So a little bit defensive, basically. Now this continued, and if you thought Ned Price, the representative right there from the State Department, was defensive in the first video, take a look at the advice that he provides to the AP reporter in this.
Matt, you said yourself, you've been in this business for quite a long time. You know that when we make information, intelligence information public, we do so in a way that protects sensitive sources and methods. You also know that we do so. We declassify information only when we're confident in that information. If you doubt the credibility of the U.S. government, of the British government, of other governments, and want to find solace in information that the Russians are putting out, that is for you to do.
I'm not asking what the Russian government is putting out, and what is it supposed to be?
Video, because U.S. officials are describing very specific scenes, but do they actually have a video?
The fact that we are able to go into such great detail, obviously I'm not going to spell out what is in our possession, but I will leave it to you. I will leave that to your judgment, to your imagination.
There are no facts that you've spelled out.
You can't leave it to their judgment. They asked you, you're saying you saw a video. Do you have a video? Well, I can't say what we saw could be a video, could be a ham sandwich, I don't know. No, you're talking about a video. Does the video exist? Have you actually seen it? They're asking specific questions and he is being wildly evasive. Like that is the sort of press briefing that I guess we should just get used to, and maybe we should be used to it, because that's generally the approach that most representatives of the Trump administration had toward the press. And so, look, we're left in a difficult situation here because in response to the question from the State Department rep, do you question the United States government? Yeah, yes, we do, especially in topics like this, and especially when they might be taking some information they have, but then playing their hand. And so we're left in a situation where we have one of two things. We either have a false flag, which is what Russia might be doing, or we have the US pretending they're gonna do a false flag, which would be a false flag, which becomes a flag again, which they wanna wrap themselves in. So we're in a difficult position, Cenk. Which is it?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of irony in this, but overall I love it. So I'm gonna explain why I love it and what the irony is. So first of all, I don't think that what the Price is doing there, the Biden administration spokesperson there, is doing is extraordinary at all. It is what it normally happens in Democratic and Republican administrations. What's extraordinary is the reporter actually asking tough questions in a press briefing. That almost never happens. So, and NPR also asked tough questions of Psaki on similar issues, and they seem flummoxed by it. They're like, is that a reporter? Who let them in here? Like, why are they asking me super legitimate and slightly difficult questions? And he seems like bewildered that the reporter will not simply write down what the government spokesperson said as fact. And to be fair to him, generally that's what they do. So that's why it's a twist. He's like, reporters being reporters, and nobody could have seen this coming. And so as I saw that video, I was like, yes, finally, yes. So we beat up on the corporate press all the time, but if they do the right things, we love it. We love it. We can't get enough of it, right? Now the irony is, my guess here, and we're only guessing because there's no actual facts, is that they're not lying. Okay, now why do I guess that? Because it's not a normal lie for the American government. A normal lie for the American government is, well, it just happened, by the way. We killed the leader of ISIS, and 10 people were dead, 6 children and 4 women, at least 10 civilians dead. And we say, oh yeah, the ISIS leader killed him. Did he? Or did we kill them and you don't want to take responsibility yet, right? So that is a very normal lie from the American government. We have a specific plan for a video of a false flag operation is not at all normal. And so if they're saying that, they probably have it. Okay, but we should not take their word for it. And that's not how journalism works. So that's why I say it's a little bit ironic. And I get if they have it, why they would say it so the Russians can't use it. If you say it afterwards, it sounds like a conspiracy theory. If you say it's a false flag operation, if you say it ahead of time, it does neutralize it.
Is it stronger if you show it?
Well, that's the which gets to the third point, which gets back to why it was such a great set of questions. Because, well, wait, is it a video or is it a plan to make a video? Right? Do they already have the video? Because if you showed it, boy, that would be really persuasive, right? And I get that you want to protect your sources of methods, but when he said, the government spokesperson said, are you doubting our credibility? I mean, it was such a hilarious moment, but yeah, of course that's the job of a reporter, is to doubt your credibility. And he said, oh, I guess you could take solace in taking the word of the Russian government. That's not what he said. He's not supposed to take the word of any government. And you try to do a smear job McCarthyite attack in accusing a reporter who's asking you a legitimate question. Oh, I guess you're taking solace. No, dude, nobody's taking solace with the Russians or ISIS or any of that. You guys are jokes. And then, but my favorite part, Adrian, was when he said, we just declassified it. And the guy's like, great, where is it? He's like, I just said it. He's like, that's not declassifying it, that's just you saying it. Come on, don't insult our intelligence.
It was definitely very entertaining, just because Cenk, I think you're absolutely right. The representative expected just for the media to simply take it and run with it. And they were unwilling to do that, where they actually wanted facts and supporting information and evidence, and would not just kind of be a speaker for the US government with whatever they're trying to do in terms of, whether it's neutralizing the potential video from the Russians or whatnot. But it's very funny. I really do love that line of, you just don't trust us? Like, hell no, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Oh, where have they been?
But at the same time, we have to keep it real. It's very easy to just reflexively assume that the US government must be lying, which in this case necessitates, well, obviously Russia wouldn't be lying. No, either or both could be lying. Governments lie. Yes, the US government lies, that's definitely true, but they're hardly unique in that. They're not trailblazers in governments deceiving their people. So let's not be smooth-brained in either direction. And the further difficulty of our position is that obviously we can't directly check the information. We can't even get it like 2 layers away from it, aside from whatever Ned Price decides to declassify via vocalization. Like, we don't know. We're left to speculate, but we bring to that speculation the experiences we've had with US government propaganda and the propaganda of other countries leading up to this year.
Yeah, so guys, you always have to use your judgment. There's no way around it. Do governments lie? All the time. Do reporters tell you that governments lie? Very rarely. Okay, unless you're watching TYT, in which case we're super honest about it. And in fact, by the way, there's a lot of people that are in independent media who say no. The right wing will say only foreign governments lie, or at least they used to say that, right? Now there's some people pretending to be on the left who say only the American government lies. That's a preposterous point. Of course they all do. And then you go to false flags. Do they exist or don't they exist? People love to think simplistically and go, well, they either all exist or none of them exist. Or maybe some of them do and some of them don't, and we have to use our judgment and reporting to find out which one is which. So did the Turkish government do a false flag operation, or were they considering a false flag operation in Syria? Yes, ministers were caught on tape talking through how they would attack their own military post that was across the border, pretend that the other side did it, and use it as an excuse to attack. Let alone the Gulf of Tonkin and 1,000
Northwood.
Yes, and there's plenty of historical evidence of false flag operations launched by different governments throughout the world. Does that mean that everything's a false flag operation? Of course not, of course not. Was Sandy Hook a false flag operation? False flag for what, right? No, that's absurd, that's insane, and has no evidence to back it up at all. So, but to me, the most telling part of this was how surprised Ned Price was. And that gives you a sense of how awful journalism has been in Washington for so long, that when he got a normal question handed to him, along with his ass, he was bewildered.
Yeah.
A reporter asking a legitimate question, it's never happened before. And that's why he seemed to try to intimidate him with, are you working for the Russians? Absurd.
He got de-assified live, actually. That's how that works.
Okay, now, ironically, I'm going to answer this question maybe differently than some of you will, but I don't know. That's why we're asking. So we're doing a poll, tyt.com/polls. Do you think US intelligence is lying about Russia's false flag operation? You could think that Ned Price was a jackass, and you could think that he was very wrong and disrespectful to the press, and still think that he might be telling the truth about the false flag operation. I probably do, right? But by the way, I might be ridiculously naive. So I'm curious what you guys think. That's why we do the polls, tyt.com/polls. And whenever we talk about polls, petitions, or anything else like that, if you're watching this video on one of the platforms, YouTube, Facebook, etc., check the description box because you'll see the link as an easy way to click and vote on those.
Yeah. Yeah, and my final point is, in addition to the different ways that you can go towards that poll, you can also think that it's possible that the Russian government is either as the main thing they're gonna do or as some sort of backup, have a false flag and not want us to invade in response.
Yes.
You can identify that and not want us to invade Moscow. I know this isn't going out to our audience, they understand that, but there are very stupid people online, so let's just make that explicit.
Yeah, and I'll just triple down on US and Russia and China could all have imperialist ambitions. And we could be against all of their imperialism, not just some of them.
Why do you want to invade them, Cenk? Why? Anyway, with that said, we should take our first break though. Lots more to get to after this.
All right, guys, I got to give you a bunch of notes that are really important. First of all, I hope you guys are watching the conversation at 5:30 because there's some amazing interviews that are happening there. So every day before the Young Turks is at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, you've got the conversation. On Monday, we're gonna have Ro Khan on. I already did the interview, so I can tell you with absolute certainty that you do not want to miss it. That is a very interesting interview, 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Check that out. And then another programming note. Oxy Kingpins is a movie that we produced along with the director of Don't Look Up, Adam McKay, and director of Tiger King, Chris Smith. It's an amazing movie compared to a Martin Scorsese movie, even though it's a documentary. It's about how the drug companies are the new drug cartels. So you can watch that along with us. We're doing it with Kinema. So what happens is, so it's $15. So like you're going to a movie, right? You watch it at home, and then afterwards we're doing a Q&A. One of the stars of the movie, Mike Papantonio, is in there. He's the lawyer that's featured in the movie that's pursuing these guys. And then I will be doing the Q&A with Mike. So we're happy to take your questions. You can get it at tyt.com/screening, tyt.com/screening. And so that's February 10th, which is a Thursday, not a Tuesday. They got to fix that graphic. So that's next week, guys. Don't miss it. I think you guys are going to absolutely love the movie, and then I'm looking forward to your questions on it. Okay, and then this is a special note. A good friend and longtime TYT employee, Malcolm Fleshner, is leaving the network, and we love him. And we just wanted to I wanted to say a note about how great he's been and how helpful he's been to the network. I've been with Malcolm forever. He and I worked together when I did the original Young Turk. That was a public access station show all the way back in Arlington, Virginia, literally now over 25 years ago. And Malcolm and I did that together. So nothing but love here. He's also wrote the newsletter. You saw him on Old School. You saw him on the Friday post games in the old days, in the back in the day. He's helped with 1,000 things behind the scenes. If you were any of our contributors to our campaigns, you might have gotten a call from Malcolm. He's been invaluable. He's a brilliant progressive, and it's been an honor working with him. So Malcolm, we love your brother, and thank you for all the great work. We'll be back. back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Adrian with you guys. John's got a lot more news.
I do. Actually, right before the news though, I do want to say during the break, we announced that Malcolm Fleshner has been here for way longer than I have, is gonna be transitioning out. Malcolm's obviously a great guy, he's done a lot of great stuff here. I also wanted to say that after years and years of amazing work, we are regrettably losing one of our great editors, Cassie, who's worked on everything here, including years of editing the damage report. She's also our amazing photographer. If you've ever seen a photo of one of us and thought, hey, that looks like a professional did it, it was Cassie that took that photo, and she's going on to do other amazing work, but she's been a big part of TYT, so it's sad to see her go.
Yeah, she's wonderful in 1,000 different ways, and so look, we've got a great atmosphere here, and so I love the folks working here, and so Cassie was a dream. Anna always shouts her out for the great pictures, and she's going on to do a dream job, so we're super happy for her.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, with that, let's do this. It has been over a year since January 6th, over a year since the multi-pronged effort to overthrow the results of the election, with one big part of that being the pressure campaign to get Mike Pence to do what he has absolutely no authority to do, which is unilaterally decide that Donald Trump gets to be president. That is a claim that Donald Trump has been making up until like this week. And finally, like 13 months later, Mike Pence is finally weighing in on it in this video.
There are those in our party who believe that as the presiding officer over the joint session of Congress, that I possess unilateral authority to reject electoral college votes. And I heard this week that President Trump said I had the right to overturn the election. But President Trump is wrong. I had no right to overturn the election. The presidency belongs to the American people and the American people alone. And frankly, there is no idea more un-American than the notion that any one person could choose the American president. Under the Constitution, I had no right to change the outcome of our election.
Okay, so everything that Mike Pence said there was factually accurate. Also accurate to say that he is saying it way after maybe he might have had an effect. I mean, maybe he never would have at all. But that video has generated so much attention and so much applause for Mike Pence. He's the best, he's the sexiest man in America. He's doing such good things, defender of democracy. Maybe he should be the next Democratic presidential nominee. What do you think, Cenk? What do you think?
Okay, but look, so credit where credit is due. So number one, I'm thrilled that he's saying it. Finally, he said it. Number two, he should have said it on January 6th, let alone 7th. They tried to murder him. The chant was hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. And it took him over a year to gather up the courage to say the most obvious thing in the world when Trump supporters were looking to execute him for not overturning a Democratic election. So now the most important question is, why is he saying it now? If he was too scared to say it for over a year, what changed? Well, what changed is what we told you guys approximately a month ago. And you, longtime TYT viewers, not even long time, you can see it every day, right? But you saw us tell you that, hey, the Republicans are turning. The donors must have turned because it is now systematically, people are going and saying Trump is wrong, Trump is wrong. We showed you first the standard politicians, Kinzinger, Cheney, et cetera, that's already was baked in. They were already on that side, so that's not interesting news. But then people that were not diehard Trump people, but very conservative politicians started saying it. We're like, wait a minute. And then I said, once we got 2 or 3 people saying, I was like, that's it. The memo went out. The memo is now saying, and the memo goes out from literally places like the Chamber of Commerce. And they tell people, sometimes they say you now have permission to say this, and other times it'll say, you must say this, right? And then when I saw Brian Kilmeade and a couple other Fox News contributors do it, I was like, oh, that's it. There's no question, there's no question. In fact, we predicted that Fox would say it even before Kilmeade said it. So now this is beginning, this is now, I wouldn't say this is a culmination, but it's getting there. For Pence to now come out and say, yes, the vice president cannot unilaterally overturn an election, to us is Literally the most obvious thing we've ever heard. That's not how a democracy. We didn't all go vote and then go, oh, hey, I wonder what the vice president's gonna say. Right, and as I've said 100 times, and I haven't heard anyone else say it, even though, again, the most obvious thing in the world. If that theory was true, then good news, you don't have to bother voting in 2024 because Kamala Harris is gonna decide the election. Do Republicans want that? Hell no, right? So this is more important than just Pence saying something a year too late. This is some grand poobahs in the Republican Party saying, no, we're gonna take on Trump full bore, and we're gonna try this. We're gonna stop being scared. And Mitch McConnell also piled on today, so there's no question it's a coordinated effort. Adrian.
Oh, yeah, and I agree with you. Initially, I went into this thinking that it was because Mother finally gave Pence her approval, but I'm really glad that he got there. And also too, even just from a humanistic standpoint, I could imagine that Pence was probably somewhat relieved to finally be able to say this, in part because having Trump to kind of reignite these claims so recently, I'm sure things have finally kind of somewhat settled for Pence in terms of, I'm sure, the threats to his life and all sorts of things and attacks on his family. So to have that reignited and to finally be able to say something probably felt pretty good. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like the Republicans, they're always the last minute, let me make sure that this suits my own needs and my own agenda first. So I'm just, I am surprised, I am grateful, but I am still annoyed.
Yeah, I gotta say one last thing about Pence. So the fact that he couldn't even condemn his own attempted execution shows incredible cowardice. And here he didn't get permission from Mother. My guess is he got permission from the Republican donors. But having said all that, if he had gone along with Trump, Giuliani, Bannon, Navarro's plan, we would have had an unbelievable mess. He would have said that, and they call it the Green Bay Sweep. They named it. It was a plan. There's no question about it. It was an attempted coup. They said all that Pence has to do, even though it doesn't have any effect in law, is to say, I'm sending it back to the states. I am not certifying this election. And then we will pretend that our fake electors, and literally they had people sign fake documents saying that they were electors when they were not electors in the swing states. We will then seat the fake electors. And so if Pence had gone along with the ruse, they would have done that plan. And then the military would have had to have decided who's the real president. And the fact that Pence avoided that is a testament to him. So we have to be fair about, on that day, he did have strength and courage. He lost it for a year and now has regained it with the help of donors, etc. Right? But this is the establishment striking back, but in a crazy twist of fate, in a positive way. So probably the only positive thing the establishment's ever done.
Exactly. Yeah, and because of that, he is an honorary member of the Dragon Squad. I'm kidding, he's not.
I wouldn't go that far.
Hopefully now, can we all dispense with the idea that he's the most powerful person, that the VP is the most powerful person in Washington? They're not. It's the Senate parliamentarian. Everybody should know that by now. People never took a government class. Anyway, with that, we have to turn from that news to literally the worst sort of news, the most tragic sort of news, and the apparently most common sort of news in America. Let's turn to this. Body cam footage released today shows the moment that a no-knock police raid by the Minneapolis police resulted in the almost immediate murder of a 22-year-old black man named Amir Locke in his apartment. He was sleeping when they busted in, and less than 10 seconds later, he was dead. We are going to show you this video, but understand the content of it. It is incredibly graphic, obviously, and might well be triggering for many people. So with that warning, here is the footage that was released. So devastatingly, in the same area where police killed George Floyd using the same technique that resulted in the death of Breonna Taylor, another individual has been killed. Obviously that footage was slowed down. I don't know exactly why it was released that way, but that is the way that the video has been released. And we want to give you a little bit more information about this. Importantly, he was not the individual that they were even there for. That of course would not justify what you saw in the video, but they were not there for him. They'd been carrying out a warrant on Wednesday morning for the St. Paul Police Department's homicide unit. Chief Huffman of that unit said that officers had a warrant for 3 locations in the apartment complex, and that Amir Locke was not named in the original warrant. Now, Locke did have a gun in his hand, according to police, but it's unclear whether he was aware that police officers had entered his apartment. And that is buttressed by the fact that he had just woken up seconds earlier, had not done anything wrong, was legally allowed to have that gun, and only in a case like this where it's a black man being killed would any conservative argue that he shouldn't have had a gun in his hand if he didn't want to be immediately executed by the police. Yeah, so look, I have more to say, but obviously we want to hear what you and Adrian have to say about all this.
Okay, yeah, so first of all, there's 2 potential scenarios here, and I know why, I think I know why they released the video in slow motion and regular speed. And I watched it in both. And I think that they did the slow motion one so that you have a better chance of seeing the gun. And I didn't see it in the regular speed one, but I think I might have seen it in the slow motion one. It's hard to tell. So the 2 scenarios are he has a gun and he doesn't have a gun. So in the one where he doesn't have a gun, it's the most outrageous killing you've ever seen. They wake the guy up and they say 10 seconds, but most of it was outside opening the door. But when they enter the apartment, it's only 2 or 3 seconds and then boom, he's dead. They shoot him. If he doesn't have a gun, it's the most outrageous shooting you've ever seen. Walk into a guy, wake him up and execute him, right? But if he does have a gun, to John's point, right wing, be really careful about whose side you're on. Because if you say the police can come into any house, wake you up and you have no idea who they are. I mean, that guy had about a second when he woke up. And then if you reach for your gun that you have perfectly legally in this country, the police can instantly execute you. That is a very, very dangerous standard, and actually would put, if our entire system wasn't obviously and overtly racist, it would put the right wing in greater danger than anyone else because they have more guns. Of course, they think, nah, they'll just shoot black people with it, they won't shoot me. That'll be largely correct statistically, but sometimes they'll shoot you too. Adrian.
You know what, this seems even far more egregious than what happened to Breonna Taylor, just by virtue of the fact that this individual didn't have any time to react, to respond, to really do anything. And they had moved so incredibly quickly, sleeping again. And it's just wrong location, every bit about it. And it's something that seems to happen so incredibly often, especially in Minneapolis, where the black population is 19%, yet we're 66% of the people that police kill. It's wild to me that we still live in a country that continues to allow this behavior and to condone it, but it's just, I don't even know what to say. It's disgusting, and this 22-year-old man lost his life. And now we are going to be now in the space of social media of essentially debating his humanity.
Yeah, exactly. There should be no debate whatsoever. In addition to the right wing, I am going to guess, is just not going to touch this because they know it puts them in a possible position, because they want cops to continue to do stuff like this to people like Amir Locke specifically, but they don't want to answer any of those questions about guns. These are people that fantasize literally every single day about the possibility that a pack of leather-clad marauders are going to storm across their yard and break down their door. So obviously they have to have cannons and flamethrowers and rocket launchers. And yet they're perfectly fine with Amir Locke being put in a position where he has to wake up and in a second decide, there are people breaking down my door yelling at me. I can either shoot, and if I don't, and they are just random people, they might kill me. Or if I even look like I might be a threat and they're cops, they'll definitely kill me. So you have a quarter of a second to make that decision. There's not a right winger in the world that thinks that is acceptable to put a conservative in that position, a white person in that position, and they're not going to be able to say that. And so I have a feeling they're just not going to touch this with a 10-foot pole. Yeah, last couple of points here. First, if you're thinking, really Minneapolis again? Again, it's in Minnesota. That's George Floyd and about half a dozen
massive nationwide discussed cases all coming out from the same state. Gee, I wonder if there's a problem with the training of the police officers. Nope, we're never gonna fix it. Never, ever going to fix it. Not just in that state and in that city, but all across the country. And to John's point about the right wing, it's not just marauders, John. It's their number one fantasy is that jackbooted thugs of the tyrannical government come to their door, which I always explain is the police, and then they get to murder the cops. Are you sure you're gonna be able to pull the gun fast enough? He was killed in about 2 seconds once they enter the apartment. And by the way, he did, if the cops are telling the truth, he did pull the gun and then he was killed. So how are you gonna fight them? Are you gonna be awake all night waiting for the cops? And then as soon as they come, you're gonna go kill the cops before they kill you? This is madness, this is insanity. We can't live like this. And so, which then of course brings me back to the training. So it never occurred to the cops in Minnesota that if you're going into a situation like this, somebody might have a legal gun. They might be a legal gun owner, or you might have the wrong person. You heard all that stuff about Breonna Taylor case, where it was the same exact scenario, but actually to Adrian's point, it took much longer, right? In the Breonna Taylor situation. Here, they shoot within 2 seconds, like they did with Tamir Rice, like they did with the Crawford and the Walmart shooting in Ohio. And so, can we please train the police not to execute people instantly? Oh, well, they had a gun. Well, yeah, of course, some of them are gonna have a gun. So is your idea, okay, we go into a house, if God forbid we have the wrong house or the wrong person, etc., let's just execute them and then sort it out later. That is their plan. That is their plan. They don't train them, oh, if there's a gun and just in case there might be the wrong person, or you should tell them to put your hands up, you should wait for them to wake up, and hence you should have shields, you should go in a certain way, you have to give them a second and a half before you take their life. No, apparently there's no such training at all. The only thing we train cops to do is to execute people.
And it's interesting because they only seem to execute black people. But when it comes to also this officer, it's like these officers, they said that Locke had pointed the gun at them. You can see in the video that that's not the case, to the extent that he had the gun and it was pointing anywhere, it was downward. Plus also, he only had a mere several seconds of a waking up. I can barely balance myself when I wake up. And especially with someone screaming and yelling at me and pointing a light in my face, like the man didn't even have a chance to survive this encounter. And it continues to show you how often that essentially police do not intend for individuals to live. It does not matter. They create these deadly situations and then just do a shoulder shrug of, well, I guess it happened, but at least I was scared and I had to survive.
Yeah, last thing, if the right wing wasn't so racist, they'd be 100% on our side on this issue. It's the jackbooted thugs of the government break into your house, you're a legal gun owner, and they murder you in 2 seconds.
You're innocent.
You're innocent. It's the right wing should be like as fervent as they have ever been in defense of Amir Locke. But he's black, so my guess is in a best case scenario, they won't say a word. In a normal case scenario, as Adrian alluded to earlier, they'll go now after he's dead, try to character assassinate Amir Locke and say, oh no, it was worth it. It was justified. He's black, and I mean, he once had detention in junior high, and let's just try him now in the court of public opinion. So we applaud cops for killing black people. So that's likely what's going to happen, but at best you'll get neutrality. When if they had any principles at all, the right wing should be livid about this.
100%. Okay, with that said, we're gonna take our second break. We'll be back after this.
TYT during the break. Stephen Belgard writes in on Super Chat. Right-wingers are totally like this, excuses for violence. I had dinner with one the other day who casually threatened to shoot me in the head while driving. Turns out he had a gun too. Fiance's family. Whew. And by the way, guys, that's not unusual. Like, yes, that's an extreme case, but marrying into a family that has right-wingers in it that think violence is awesome is super normal in America.
Yeah.
And then they wonder like, oh, why can't you guys just get along? Well, they threaten to murder us every once in a while. That's a good reason.
Yeah, and we drink chai lattes. There's extremity on both sides.
Yeah. Warren McNeil wrote in on Super Chat as well. And by the way, it's awesome when you guys use Super Chat. We really appreciate it. It helps the show, and we get to do the show with you guys. So Warren wrote in, we need a TYT White House correspondent. Damn right, brother. Can't wait. So one day. And I don't just say that lightly. We will have one day. J320, and by the way, more members means we'll get there quicker, okay? That's totally real. TYT.com/join, or if you're on YouTube, hit the join button below. J320 is a YouTube member and wrote in, happy birthday, John.
Oh, very nice, thank you very much.
Oh, there you go, happy birthday. Okay.
You turned 29 once or twice.
Oh, sure. Roxa Sora 541 writes in, murderers. There's nothing else to call them but evil murderers. So that is very clear. Pompeo's lack of shame writes in our member section. Hi, Cenk. 15-year fan and a real supporter. I live in Europe and have always turned to your work to keep me informed about US politics over the years. Thank you. With Malcolm leaving, really sorry to hear. Could anyone pick up the international fun he used to do on the Friday post game or add more international pieces to the main show? So we are trying to put more international pieces. Unfortunately, the Biden administration is helping us with the warmongering on Russia, etc. But there's so many other stories. Anna did a wonderful interview about the Uyghur genocide in China. And so we've been trying to do more of it, but you never know. Malcolm might come back in different roles, and I love the way he covered international stories along with Dave Kohler. Tina writes in, loving the reporter pushing back on Price, not accepting the Biden BS, here. Eclectic Miscellanea wrote in, will Russia counter this false flag accusation from the US by making a true accusation of the US doing a false flag accusation? Or will Russia choose to make a false flag accusation of their own?
Well, Cenk, look, I gotta come clean. That video of the AP reporter and the State Department person, we just made that in Adobe Premiere. It didn't exist.
It's a false flag. It's a false flag. Okay,
it was Cassie's last video she edited for us.
You guys are a hoot. I love doing the show with you guys. Textan says, basically the Price was saying, stop making it so hard for me to lie. Good point, we'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Adrian with you guys. John, take it away.
Okay. Interesting news out of Washington. An organization called the Congressional Workers Union has announced that they are ready to begin unionizing the offices of different congressmen and women. Now, they're not technically a union. They're gonna sort of represent unionization efforts in the individual offices. It gets complicated and we'll get into it, but we wanna read a little bit of a statement that they put out saying, after more than a year of organizing as a volunteer group of congressional staff, we are proud to publicly announce our efforts to unionize the personal offices and committees of Congress in solidarity with our fellow workers across the United States and the world. And they say last month, a survey distributed by the Congressional Progressive Staff Association found that 91% of staff surveyed want more protections to give them a voice at work. Democrats have historically stood up for workers' rights to organize. Now it is time for Democrats to lead by example. I think they're being quite charitable in the middle of that statement there, but I get why they're doing it in terms of public relations. And in terms of that statement though, they seem to be alluding to one Democrat in particular. Take a look at this video yesterday of Nancy Pelosi.
Do you support staffer attempts to unionize here in Congress?
Well, we're just unionized at the DCCC, and I supported that. Yeah.
Okay, so she apparently is on board. That's what she said, and we can debate whether we believe that or not. But in addition, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who has participated in support of multiple labor movement strikes, things like that, tweeted, on Capitol Hill, interns are often unpaid, many staffers don't make a living wage, and lack of work protections can pave the way for unhealthy environments. So is there movement? Is this gonna happen? What do y'all think?
Well, let me be clear here, because Nancy Pelosi didn't say she supported it. She said she supported a different unionization effort that was purposely evasive. So that means she likely does not support it. So I don't know enough of the details to know, did they go to the Pelosi's of the world? Did they get a yes? Did they get a no? Did they not talk to them? I have no idea of the details of how it is proceeding. And I've got to say that a lot of times progressives are quicker to unionize. But what I would love, and this is important, unionize the staff for all of the Democrats. Because if you just do it for the progressives who are already on your side, and you let the corporate Democrats not unionize, well, that's weird. No, it's got to be for all of the Democrats. So I hope that they've got the strength to be able to do that. Adrian.
So I think that this is extremely smart and wise for them to unionize, because the kind of work environments they're in cannot be healthy just by virtue of the fact that we know where there are work environments where there are significant disparities in power. Also, you have these star players in terms of people who are uplifted and almost holier than thou, and people exploit their power. They exploit other people, and we even saw that kind of during that Me Too movement period, where some staffers did come forward and say, hey, essentially the reporting processes and procedures that they silence you, and the fact that there isn't a great sense of transparency there, and they had to push to move to make changes in that arena, it tells you there's a lot of bad stuff going on behind closed doors, and it would be in the best interest of staffers to essentially be able to work collectively to fight against it.
Definitely, yeah. The difference in the power between them is obviously clear, and that's been, I mean, how many scandals in congressional offices can we think back on in the past few decades? But I did allude to it being potentially difficult in some ways. So let me give you a little bit more details about that. This is according to reporting by Kayla Epstein at Business Insider. Should legislation make it to a full vote in the House and pass, the resolution also would activate the same kind of labor protections that apply to the rest of the public workforce. That means that staff who begin to discuss unionizing efforts in their workplaces have protections against retaliation. By the way, since it requires a full vote in the House, they're definitely gonna wanna do that relatively quickly, considering how things are looking for November. But then, with the way that the law is written, every congressional office and committee would have to independently organize for itself. That means that staffers in each of the 538 separate offices and dozens of committees would have to go through the process themselves. This could and likely would result in a situation where only half of Congress's offices unionize, with a split evident between Democrats and Republicans. Although even that is interesting, because there's no reason why the offices of Republicans wouldn't want the same protections, ability to negotiate for better conditions and pay. But since many of the people who go through this see this as a stepping stone to other positions in the party, even though they would know it is in their direct economic interest, and in terms of protections from exploitation and things like that, sexual harassment, all that, they might not want to organize just because they could get blacklisted from the party effectively.
Yeah, so I have a prediction. They are not going to vote quickly. They're going to try to run out the clock and let the Republicans get in charge so that they'll kill the effort. So I say that because, one, they're corporate Democrats. They never mean anything they say. And so they've been saying they support unions for decades. They've never once passed any of those bills. Obama said, oh my God, I'm gonna do it. Didn't do it.
The PRO Act.
The PRO Act. Didn't even introduce it. It's just a joke. There's no chance of it passing in the Senate. They didn't even try. So will they unionize themselves? I would be borderline shocked. And on top of that, Pelosi saying, I supported a different effort, means she doesn't support this effort. And she, of course not. She's like the queen of corporate rule. So they think unions are a joke and a punching bag. And oftentimes union leaders agree with them. So now, if they actually unionize these guys, that would be a hell of a development. But I'll believe it when I see it. And yes, partly because they just don't believe in unions. They're lying. They love corporate rule. That's 90% of the Democratic Party. The AOC means it. The progressives mean it, right? And then finally, also because they like that power and they don't want to give it away. Yeah, there's been tons of abuse, including recently by people like Katie Hill, who slept with staffers. So, and yeah, she left Congress, but she's still beloved in Washington. I mean, there's fawning articles about how wonderful she is, right? And how brave she is. So you think that people like Katie Hill and the others, and mainly guys, but it happens to, in her case, be a female congressperson too, are just gonna voluntarily go, oh yeah, you guys should check my power. If that's happening in Washington, I haven't seen it. So, good effort. I hope you win. Good luck to you.
Yep, absolutely agree. The fact is that Republicans don't dominate the field when it comes to being oppressors and wanting to have power. And so there are plenty of Democrats out there who also do not want to see their staff unionized. They still want to be able to essentially have that ability to abuse their power over them. And it's so absolutely disgusting. But you know what? I really do hope it does work out for the staffers, because a lot of the things that they endure are completely unethical, immoral, and they should not have those experiences.
Want to move on to our last story? Okay, this one's a bit of a doozy. Sean Hannity and Adam Carolla were initially having a conversation about Whoopi Goldberg being suspended over her commentary recently about the Holocaust. In particular, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's commentary about that. Now, AOC had disagreed with the decision by ABC to suspend Whoopi Goldberg, saying that, and she seemed to be sort of following on some of what members of the Jewish community in America had said, that this is an opportunity to learn and to have a dialogue rather than to simply suspend her. Now that is apparently, Sean Hannity seemed to agree with that, but Adam Carolla didn't. And so he said, obviously it is hypocritical with AOC because she didn't care about Roseanne getting canceled or Sharon Osbourne or Chris Harrison from The Bachelor or any of that. It's just when someone from her side of the aisle gets slapped on the hand, then she wants to show some grace. So you can agree or disagree with that perspective, but that is not where Adam Carolla stopped. It then turned to this.
And here's a quick thought experiment. If AOC was fat and in her 60s, would anyone listen to another thing she ever said?
Oh boy, you're gonna step in that one. What exactly do you mean by that? Do you mean, is it because she's young and what?
Yes, she's young, she's vibrant, she's beautiful, and everyone's always putting a camera and a mic in her face. But her opinions are idiotic 95% of the time. And I don't think if she was a middle-aged, heavy-set woman, anyone would care what she had to say.
I'm not so sure I agree.
So Sean Hannity sort of disagrees. Of course, he was sort of smirking during that conversation, saying, oh, you're gonna step in it, not what you're saying is horrendous, and you're actually a part of the problem that you're implying exists. But then goes on to say, no, she is actually quite effective at turning all of the Democrats into socialists, and they all follow her lead. So even his apparent defense of AOC was disconnected from reality. But anyway, I'm curious what you both think about the commentary you saw there.
So mixed bag, and what's the mixed part? Hold on, I'll get to it. So number one, he says, oh yeah, you know, she thought Sharon Osbourne and Roseanne Barr, et cetera, should be canceled. Did she? Did you double check that? I don't know that she thought that at all, right? So for example, for us, we almost always say that they shouldn't get canceled. And by the way, different hosts have different opinions, so I should speak for myself, right? For example, I didn't think Sharon Osbourne should be fired. I thought they should have had a conversation over it, and I can go on and on. Megyn Kelly, I mean, we've defended 1,000 different right-wingers, not what they said, but that we shouldn't fire them. Instead, we should have a conversation about it. And that's because, unlike the right wing, we have principles. Now, Roseanne Barr, on the other hand, didn't say something that was borderline. Like Whoopi Goldberg talked about how the Holocaust was terrible, but wasn't necessarily racial. Now, as I said at the time, I think it was wrong, but I don't think she should have been suspended over it. They should have just had a conversation on air about it and clarified it, right? And the same standard I use for Megyn Kelly, Osborne, and everyone else. Okay, by the way, on the other hand, Roseanne Barr said that Valerie Jarrett, who was a top-level aide for Barack Obama and who was Christian and African-American, was a cross between the Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes.
Jesus.
That is not the same thing as what Whoopi Goldberg said. I know Adam Carolla doesn't have much of a mind, so he can't use it for independent judgment. He's like, oh, controversial comments, always good, always good. Me no cancel. Okay, I know. All right, so now in terms of his comments about AOC, yeah, of course, Hannity brought him on to say things like that, and then go, oh, golly gee, did he do it? Right? And I don't know about that. So, but here's the twist. Is it true that the mainstream media pays more attention to AOC because she's attractive? The answer is probably yes. Now, Carolla's an idiot. He's, oh, she's wrong 95% of the time. Dude, you have like 3 brain cells. Who are you to judge political issues? You don't know anything. And AOC's at least 20 times smarter than you, at least. I mean, like literally your IQ is probably 5% of hers. And so, but on the other hand, is the media obsessed with looks and appearances and optics? Have you seen television? Do the cable anchors look attractive or not attractive? Is that a coincidence? All right, maybe, but I doubt it. All right, so Adrian, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head on everything. As far as Carolla goes, he's made it clear he's a Republican. I think he's once said, I want a secure border. I'm not into welfare state, that kind of thing. Like he comes on to try to peddle some controversial takes and statements. But also, Cenk, you're right in that to some extent, AOC definitely is probably the beneficiary of beauty privilege as well as having fair skin. We see how colorism works in our society and racial privilege and all of these things. And so people are more likely to be centered when they are on the side of the privilege. And so that is an accurate statement, but to suggest that she has nothing else to offer outside of those physical aspects of her is just more Carolla ignorance that he wanted to peddle. And also, it's the fact is that you went on Sean Hannity's show. I'll give it to Hannity for pushing back, even though it was, the pushback level of a pillow fight. Still, it's a problematic thing, the fact that he even let Carolla get up there and use that pulpit to further greater ignorance.
I want to say one more thing about Adam Carolla's sexism, because he projects his sexism onto others. He thinks the only reason I would care is because she's hot, right? So I assume that's the only reason anyone cares. Now, Adam, it's possible that she's really smart and that's why she did one of the most historic upsets in American political history. And she's also attractive, and that mainstream media might pay more attention to her because she's attractive, and hence I'm giving you credit for a quarter right? At least that which you don't expect, right? Me no like left wing always wrong. Well, Adam, I'm agreeing with you on that, so you're in a conundrum, okay? But it could also be that despite the fact that they pay her attention because of that, she's actually really accomplished. Did you do one of the greatest political upsets in American history? No, you didn't, did you? And did she do that because she was attractive? No, that one had nothing to do with it, okay? Only after she won did the media cover her. It's not like during the primary race, the media was fawning over her because she was attractive and that's why she beat Crowley. No, the media completely ignored her. Other than us, we covered her 34 times and we didn't do it because she was attractive. We did it because she was the strongest Justice Democratic candidate, and we made an active choice about that. And so, and finally, the New York Times admitted afterwards, as did almost all of the press, oops, we missed it. We had no idea she was gonna beat Crowley. So if you think that's why she won, you don't, as usual, you don't know anything about the facts.
Yeah, it's of course missing the fact that she was involved in the sit-in, that she's probably the single best communicator of her values in Congress. And as a thought experiment, I'm sure Adam Carolla, like me, has Instagram. There are a lot of hot people in this country. Why aren't they flooding Congress? It's a graveyard in there. Why isn't Congress full of hotties? If it's so easy, you get all this free attention, where are they?
Yeah, I mean.
I honestly, John, I think they're all at TYT sitting there at that desk with you. Y'all know, you know what it's like to be taken advantage of because you're just too pretty.
Well, look, I didn't want to say it, but that's the other part I got to agree with Adam on. My success is only because of my beauty.
Hey, that's not him saying that. That's Adam Carolla saying that.
Am I not merciful? That's twice I agreed with Adam in this segment, even though I think he has 3 brain cells. All right, oh wow, we're out of time. Okay, second hour is bananas, okay? There's so many interesting stories in there, let alone, like I said, the bonus episode where we're gonna have a story about the oldest, most bisexual turtle. I don't know if it's the most bisexual turtle, but it is bisexual and it's the oldest. Anyway, you're gonna love it, so stay right here. We'll be back. Thank you, Adrian. And John. I'm pleading guilty to being too good looking.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor, or concern for whose toes we might step on, or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
How in the world are you going to get the right to vote if you don't already have the right to vote? That's impossible. Reason they tell you things are impossible is because they don't want you to try. It only took 7 years for them to get an amendment to get a right to vote.
Does this result in millions upon millions of Americans losing their coverage? And we've been waiting to find out, and now we know, yes, it will cut millions.
Public education was supposed to be the way to equalize everyone regardless of their socioeconomic status. But if you come from a family that's poor, how are you going to afford grade school for your kids?
This fight is about fairness and morality. It's about the American values.
You think that black people all across the country, in every city, were all lying when they said the police abuse and the police kill us when they should? No, of course they weren't lying. Yes, it does happen. Yes, they do get targeted more.
Why are we going to put immigrants in prison for 5 years, which American taxpayers have to pay for, if we're so concerned with immigrants using up our so-called resources?
We're gonna do both. We're gonna fight Trump and we're gonna fight the establishment. It's not that hard. Yes, you can do both at the same time. Go tell them. ShopTYT.com has new shirts like this one. And you're thinking, Cenk, what is that one? I can't see it other than the black. Yes, so I'll show it to you. If you can read this, you're not practicing social distancing. Yes!
Now, you were practicing social distancing. This is over video. But overall, you get it. Shop TYT.com.
Drop it. Power panel. Cenk Uygur, J.R. Jackson, David Schuster. Hell of a power panel. Everybody watching Watch List? You better be, all right.
Oh, if you're not, I'm watching.
JR is the watcher on the wall. So JR's new show is called The Watch List. It's on at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. Check it out, tyt.com/watchlist. You can go to youtube.com/watchlist, facebook.com/ watchlist TYT. Watchlist TYT. Make sure you put the TYT in there and make sure you subscribe, okay? And of course, David's on Rebel Headquarters, and we already know everyone's watching him. Between David and Adrian on Rebel Headquarters, they're an interesting a crew of assassins. Schuster and Adrian are amazing. So make sure you're all watching Rebel Headquarters too. All right, lots of stories to get to, and they are hilarious and ridiculous, classic watch list stories. So here we go, JR, go ahead.
Let's see if we can pull this off. Let's do it. Oklahoma State Senator Rob Sandridge, he's jumping on this discriminatory anti-education train that much of the Republican Party has been pushing lately. And except this time, he's pushing a punitive bill at some of the most vicious people in America, teachers. Let's jump right into this a little bit, you guys, to see some details of how he's attacking teachers further. So from The Independent, the proposed act, named the Students' Religious Belief Protections Act, means parents can demand the removal of any book with perceived anti-religious content from schools. Subjects like LGBT plus issues, evolution, the Big Bang Theory, and even birth control could be off the table. Now, teachers could be sued a minimum of $10,000 per incident per individual. And the fines will be paid from personal resources, again, from teachers, not from school funds, from other individuals or groups. If the teacher is unable to pay, they would be fired under this legislation. And also referring to the act as, quote, necessary for the preservation of the public peace. If passed, the law will take effect immediately, is what this bill states. Now, Rob Sandridge specifically was talking about things, and he put out a statement about reasons why he's proposing this ridiculous bill. Our education system is not the place to teach moral lessons that should instead be left up to parents and families. Unfortunately, however, more and more schools are trying to indoctrinate students by exposing them to gender, sexual, and racial identities curriculums and courses. My bills would ensure that these types of lessons stay at home and out of the classroom. That's what he said in his statement. Also, parents believing a book violates the bill, they may demand that school officials remove it within 30 days. And if the book is not removed during that time, the school employee tasked with getting rid of it will be terminated, subject to due process, and prohibited from working in another school for at least 2 years. Now, before we open this up, again, who is that one official? They're saying this school official that's tasked with getting rid of that book, and if he doesn't do it. There's a lot of generic things within this bill that make me kind of wonder, maybe he's just trying to speak to certain people, maybe certain voters, maybe certain people that help fund him, or him trying to get back into office again with this very unserious bill. But it does say religious freedom bill. It doesn't say anything about which religion. So I wonder if he thinks it's these kind of religious beliefs that he's looking to protect. Let's look at some of these. There's the Shahada, which is the declaration of faith, and it's to bear witness or testify that there's no God except one God, Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet or messenger.
If you want, I could say that. I could say it in Arabic. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Okay.
And you should be able to go in and complain about any teacher that's teaching anything against that.
Hey, if you don't say that in science class, you're gonna be fired. Okay.
Maybe Salat, is it Salat? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing these things. It's 5 daily prayers that are performed at dawn, noon, mid-afternoon, sunset, and night. The prayers are offered in Arabic language and facing the direction of Mecca. Maybe he's looking to protect that. You think so?
Muhammad and Abdullah wa Rasuluh. Okay, so obviously the point that JR is getting at is, of course he means Christianity. And of course that is establishing a religion, which is what the Constitution strictly forbids. They should read it every once in a while. They should know what this country's about, but they don't. Yeah, so this Republican senator in Oklahoma is deeply un-American. He hates the idea of America. We do not establish a religion in America, whether it's Islam or Christianity or any other religion. It's literally against the law and against our Constitution. So when he says, oh, I don't want anybody teaching moral lessons, and then says, by the way, if you teach science, I'm gonna fire you.
Exactly.
because I mean, yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Maybe we should take him literally. I mean, maybe we should see how that plays out, because if you want to talk about Christianity, I mean, the Christian Bible, Exodus 35.2, whoever does any work on the Sabbath is to be put to death. So anybody who's selling books about, say, football, let's stone them to death. Or what about if we want to go New Testament, Matthew 5-42, give to those who ask and don't refuse those who wish to borrow from you. So I'm going to ask this lawmaker in Oklahoma right now to send me $100,000, because to do otherwise would be against religion.
Yeah, good point. You're also supposed to not touch the skin of a pig, and football is literally a pigskin, or certainly some are. So I guess there goes all the Oklahoma Sooners. Okay, and they play on Saturday. That's a double whammy. Are you kidding me? I don't know. I know, 2 Sooners. But okay. I'm here all week, whether you like it or not. All right, look, the other hilarious part of this, of course, is this comes from the Republican Party that is against cancel culture. And he's like, now if you disagree with my religion, you shall be fired. And the person who doesn't fire you instantly should also be fired. You're all canceled. We're against cancel culture. Are you?
Yeah, and by the way, these are teachers, administrators, whoever it is that they're targeting here. Again, in schools, most likely public schools, because private schools, whatever they're teaching, if people want to run up and be upset about it, they can pull their kids out, and then they lose that tuition money. But generally, these are public schools that they're targeting. And I want you to think about, he knows that many of these teachers won't have the money to come up with $10,000 because one parent came in and said, I can't believe you taught my child something. So the idea is to then get rid of them. Then who replaces them? This is part of a system to make sure that you have either probably, first off, you'd have a hard time replacing them because teachers don't get paid enough, and there's already a shortage of teachers partially for that reason already, and then we also have the pandemic still ongoing. But with things like that, they're like, oh, I know what we can start doing. Maybe replace teachers with our kinds of teachers. They're trying to replace school boards already with their kind of parents. So they're thinking, let me put in the teachers that will teach this and these kinds of things that will indoctrinate my children and yours, regardless of what you believe.
Yeah,
that's where we are.
Look, and it's Orwellian, it's fascist, it's everything you could imagine. So look, the Republican Party started a war on history when they said, oh, don't teach critical race theory. Okay, fine, mission accomplished. Almost no one teaches it throughout the country at the public school level and at high school and junior high, et cetera. So they said, yeah, but what we really meant is don't teach racism. That's what we thought you meant, okay? But there was racism. I mean, there's certainly racism today, but even if you thought that was in dispute, in history, are you saying slavery wasn't racist? Are you saying Jim Crow wasn't racist? Are you saying lynchings wasn't racist? You'd have to be nuts to say that. But they're like, no, don't teach it, don't teach it, don't teach it. That's their war on history. Now this is war on science. So look, the LGBTQ stuff, you could say, oh yeah, I know, Republicans hate gay people. But it's okay, because that's their faith, is to despise people for who they are. I don't think that's Christianity. By the way, I don't think Jesus thought that was Christianity. But Republicans have a different version of Christianity, filled to the rim with fear and hatred, right? And so, okay, but that's not all. First of all, let's acknowledge that later, though, they're like, oh, no, gay people should vote for us. Oh, Dem exit, oh yeah, all gay people are voting for us. Because why? You despise them. It's not unclear, right? But even if you put that aside, which you shouldn't, he's saying don't teach evolution. And and birth control is possibly under is in danger here. That's a war on health. And Big Bang. So don't teach science. It's a war on science, which at this point probably no one's surprised by. I mean, during COVID they declared a war on science. Science, 99% of the scientists suck. So do 99% of the doctors. I saw a dude on Facebook and a podcast too. Well, I hate science. Like, look, if you want to be in the dumb party, that's your call. But science isn't it isn't a competitor religion. Religion is about faith and what you believe in spiritually. Science is about facts. That's all it is. It's trying to figure out what is true and what is not true. Here are the collection of things that we have realized are true. When you add 2 and 2, it equals 4. You could be Muslim or Christian or Jewish, it still equals 4. Can I teach that it equals 4? No, don't do it. My version of Jesus hated 4. Okay, and I don't want you to teach it. So yeah, that I hate to tell you, but that is the party of dumb. And I don't want it, and it's insane, and in this case, it's unconstitutional. Yes, we should teach actual science. Whether you like it or not, they are actually facts. And if you think evolution is not a fact, go get an education. You are 100% wrong, and you're probably in a cult.
It's not what they want. The education part is definitely what they're avoiding. Sorry, David, I've totally cut you out of this conversation.
No, that's okay. I was also going to say, speaking of teaching, I mean, if we want to take these folks to sort of the natural extreme where they're headed, we're also not going to have women teachers, because one more Bible verse for you, Timothy 2:11, I permit no woman to teach or have authority over men. So not only will we take the Bible literally to its extreme, but we will also mean that, well, in Oklahoma, where a lot of people aren't wanting to be teachers to begin with, well, let's just exclude all women teachers, because that is also against the Christian Bible that they believe so deeply in.
By the way, and my last on this, sometimes the extremist teachings and beliefs, especially when it comes to LGBTQ rights and people in general within that community, yeah, it does cross over to other religions. Some Muslims do think radically about that the way that many Christians think radically about that. You have that in common with the radical levels of different religions. Do you feel comfortable with that? As much as you say everything they teach and that some folks say is the worst and so anti-American. You agree with them?
No, the Taliban is also not in favor of LGBTQ rights, and they're also not in favor of teaching evolution. So Oklahoma, congratulations, you now have that in common.
We'll take this break, yeah?
Yeah. All right, when we come back, if you thought that was bad, in Tennessee, they're burning books. No, that's where we are in America. All right, we've got that and more when we come back. So first of all, I hope you're watching the conversation every day right before the Young Turks. It's at 5:30 p.m. live, okay? But make sure you're definitely watching on Monday. Ro Khanna's on. It was an interesting conversation. I did it today. You're gonna see it on Monday. We had a discussion about whether trusting Biden was the right strategy and whether trusting, now the new strategy is trust Manchin. Yes, it is. So watch that conversation. It's a doozy. Also, I want to shout out our sponsor, Aspiration. Love those guys. They're incredibly progressive. When you put your money in there, unlike the big banks, they don't put it in private prisons. They don't put it in fossil fuels. So you have comfort of knowing that you're doing the right thing. Plus, on top of that, every time you use your debit card, I know I do it, you plant trees. I planted over 200. TYT viewers who sign up for Aspiration have already planted over 528,000 trees. We've got a TYT forest. So go and be part of that. And by the way, they also have the best rate. So there's really no reason not to do it. Aspiration.com/TYT. Check it out. I think you'll love it. And Oxy Kingpins is a movie we made with award-winning directors Adam McKay and Chris Smith. They were co-producers on it. It's about how the drug companies are the actual drug cartels. You guys are gonna love that movie. We're showing it next week, February 10th. You gotta buy a ticket for it, it's $15. But then I'm gonna do a Q&A afterwards. Me and one of the stars of the movie are gonna do it. It's a perfect time to watch it. So TYT.com/screening, okay? Oh, and one last plug. Too Strong Coffee. So when you see me hyped up, you know it's on Too Strong. But they've got specials. They're always having specials. This is about Valentine's Day. So this one you got to panic a little bit because if you wanted to arrive by Valentine's Day, you got to order it by the end of the weekend. So they've got cuddle packages, they got cutesy packages, they've got every kind of package you want. Well, maybe not every package. The rest is for Valentine's Day. Anyway, TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT.
He's gonna be hopped up.
It'll also make you too strong in other places. No, hey, we're not right wingers. We don't make those promises anyway. All right, Mickey C. the Silver Dragon in our members section said Adam Carolla is spewing the only reason people love AOC is because she's young and beautiful. Meanwhile, he worships the feet of an old, fat, ugly, hateful, stupid POS like the deranged criminal Trump. Yeah, so it does kind of hurt your theory. That's the only thing that people care to follow. Marijuana's number 3 fan says. About the story we just did. This is a clear violation of church and state, to which I say, of course. Gal for 71 on Twitch says, did he say that school's not a place to teach lessons and that should happen at home? He can just homeschool his kids then. Agreed, love it, love that idea. To homeschool them, go away. All right, we'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk JR and David with you guys. Real quick shout out to our Twitch audience that we love. Lots of gifting going on. That's why I love that community. Frank Morningtree and Geeky Girl both gifted 10 subs just here for the free drinks, and Queen Mother Dragon gifted 5 subs, and Dave Schmidt did 4. And Mary Animal wrote, and I mean, why not go after the teachers? They make so much money and they haven't been through the ringer at all in the past couple of years. Really, that's where the Republicans are now, attacking teachers left and right, as if they're the real problems in America. It's total insanity.
Can we get one Democrat to say that?
I know, right?
Midterms aren't here yet. Maybe they will. I don't want to jump the gun.
Yeah, the Republicans say that Democrats are attacking the family because Democrats say, why don't we just let the teachers teach, right? And the Democrats can't turn around and say, why are you attacking teachers? They're so deeply incompetent. It's so disheartening to hear. Anyways, all right, JR.
Let's do it. This next story we have out of Tennessee.
I ain't breaking bread with witches. You hear me? In Jesus' name, I'll call the spirit forth that's inside you and we'll expose you for who you are right up here in these cedar chips up in this house. We'll expose you for who you are. I ain't breaking bread with demons. I ain't breaking bread with Freemasons. I ain't breaking bread with occultism. So we're not gonna prostitute communion by letting some witch curse us up in this house tonight. I pray in the name of Jesus Christ for every witch that you will be exposed. We break off them generational curses in the name of Jesus Christ. This is holy ground. This is a holy campus. The devil's tricks don't work here. Your witchcraft has to flee in the name of Jesus. We'll be down at the fire. If you brought some things, we have things out there. We have things by the office. We have a lot of stuff in the back, all right?
Remember that about how they have things in the back there as we get into this, because that's Greg Locke, pastor of the Global Vision Bible Church, that's in Tennessee. And he was just riling his congregation up for a good old fashioned book burning out there last on Wednesday. And what he wanted them to bring out was copies of Harry Potter, Twilight, maybe DVDs, Blu-rays, books, posters, anything, any kind of memorabilia from these kinds of ungodly things to throw into their good old fire. Let's check out that fire that they started as they continued on, because they lost a little audio. I think he was doing a lot of talking. I really wish we could have heard what he had to say. But there he is, setting off the book burning. Nice blaze they have going there in the middle of Tennessee. Apparently the fire chief and the firemen were gonna come out to make sure this was controlled, and he even riled up his crowd further by saying, they got the fire department to come out here. Now don't attack them. He didn't say attack, but he said, don't leave them alone. We'll take care of it. We got our security. So now the fire department is a threat. He said Homeland Security was coming. There he is taking off his jacket now at the end because it was getting a little hot. So there they are burning books, because that's the plan now, right? So a little bit more what he said on his Facebook post when he was getting people to come out of this, to the millions of followers he has there. So on that Facebook post, Locke said, bring all your Harry Potter stuff. Laugh all you will, haters. I don't care. It's witchcraft 100%. All your Twilight books and movies. That mess is full of spells, demonism, shape-shifting, and occultism. Bring tarot cards, Ouija boards, healing crystals, idol statues, spell books, and everything else tied to the occult. It's got to go. If you think we're crazy, then scroll on. We're exposing the kingdom of darkness for what it is. It's time for people to be delivered. Now, by the way, before we move on with this more, imagine, why would your flock have the Ouija boards and the books of the occult and all of this witchcraft? Did you not know that Satan was swirling around in your congregation for this many years, and now you have to burn all that stuff? Oh, you have some of it in the back in case you didn't bring enough of the Twilight books and the Harry Potter. He said that off the top. We got some materials in the back. If you guys don't have enough, we're gonna hand it to you. You can burn it with us along together. Why does the church have all of these books and these Satanist type of materials around ready for a book burning? It's like they spent their money on it or something for the purpose of burning it, to show everyone just how Christian they are. Now, these type of things was of course pointed out by this particular Twitter user that saw some similarities here. Anthony Walker, Captain Canada, said, Greg Locke's book burning in Tennessee versus a book burning in Nazi Germany. Now, we throw around Nazis all the time whenever talking about someone who disagrees with you politically. So maybe this piece from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum will convince you further.
In 1933, in April, Nazi German students decided to organize a nationwide book burning program to eliminate foreign influence, to purify German culture as they saw it.
They didn't see themselves as suppressing culture, they saw themselves as advancing Aryan German culture.
Nazi party officials, often with the help of police, were brought and dumped in a pile. Student leaders exhorted their followers and the listening crowds to swear an oath by the fire to destroy and combat subversive and un-German literature.
If you replace it with conservatism, South, good old family values, real American, all those in the place of the folks that were in those historic films from 1933, you might see some similarities there. Or if you haven't, I've got even more. So also from the same institution, the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, they pointed out in 1933, Nazi German authorities aimed to synchronize professional and cultural organizations with Nazi ideology and policy. Joseph Goebbels, Nazi Minister for Popular Enlightenment and Propaganda, he began an effort to bring German arts and culture in line with Nazi goals. The government purged cultural organizations of Jewish and other officials alleged to be politically suspect or who performed or created artworks which Nazi ideologues labeled as degenerate. Similarly to where you have books being taken out of libraries because, hey, it says a little too much about those Jewish folks, or hey, that's a black author that wrote that, talking about black folks, can't have that. Oh, that's talking about LGBTQ people and their struggle and their civil rights efforts. Oh, we gotta throw that out too. It sounds like artworks from people that they disagree with that aren't pure enough for their mindset of what America is should be burned.
They are so on the nose that if it was an Adam McKay movie, that's all the critics would say. Like, it's a little heavy-handed. They look just like the Nazis, right? And so, I mean, that book burning is so similar to the one in the video from back in Germany. In fact, the wooden posts are nearly identical. And one of the books that was recently banned in the same state of Tennessee was Mouse, which is a story about the Holocaust. And that was banned. So if it's banned, maybe they're gonna burn that next. So, I mean, you wanna talk about on the nose? And these are from the people who say they don't believe in cancel culture, and then they burn things they don't agree with, which would be an extreme form of canceling it. There's a lot more where that came from, but David.
Well, I was just going to say, look, I get there's an argument out there that if you make the Nazi comparison, you tend to diminish the historical significance of how bad Nazism and the Holocaust really were. But as somebody who lost entire branches of their family to Nazi Germany, the family members that survived got out because they were worried in the 1930s. They were told, look, a culture that will burn books will burn human beings. And some of my relatives believed it and said, we're getting the hell out of here. There were several branches of the family that said, oh no, Germany's not that bad. These are just some extremists. This is just a small but vocal minority. Well, you know what? That small but vocal minority turned out to be a lot larger. It spread, and as a result, some of us, have branches of our family that got wiped out. So yes, it's funny to laugh at Greg Locke, but we should also, I think, take this seriously and be prepared. If it's confined to Greg Locke, fine. But if this is the sort of thing that gains steam, watch out.
Well, so that brings me to my second analogy, which is. When the media, or a lot of times it's actually Democrats who, when they say, oh yeah, but it definitely can't happen here. It feels like the launch of the Titanic. This ship cannot sink, except it can. Germany sank, we can sink. Oh, Germany was in bad economic situation, etc. By the way, the stock market is a massive bubble. Now, it's already crazy. They're already banning books, they're burning books, they're banning teachers. We just did a story on how in Oklahoma, they're gonna try to take $10,000 from every teacher that teaches science, that teaches evolution and things that don't comport with their fundamentalist view of Christianity. And then if you can't pay the $10,000, you get fired. So it's already here. Now imagine if there was a massive economic downturn and the government couldn't bail us out. Oh, you think it can't happen here? You're nuts. It can happen anywhere because it resides in all of us. It's humanity's inhumanity to one another. So it's everywhere. And now they've come out of that closet, and that is when it's most dangerous. Okay, so that's the serious part. Now, but I am going to turn back to the amusing part too. Okay, so the Freemasons. We're still worried about the Freemasons? Who's worried about that? Like these guys are so old school, I don't even understand what they're talking about. Like occultism. Is that really a big, occultism rage that I missed? Is it on TikTok? Okay, like who does the occult? Like, is that a real threat to your power as a pastor in Tennessee? Is a lot of your flock being lost to the occult? Okay, I mean, there is a cult, and that's QAnon, that's Trump, etc. But witches? Is there like a flock of witches in Nashville that I missed?
We're bringing it back,
right? So like, the only thing I could look at where I go, is he worried about he's losing, like literally losing business to tarot card readers and to like the gems and the healing crystals? Like I could see maybe that's a thing, and he saw it in a strip mall and he got really mad, and he's thinking, oh, this is why people aren't coming to church because of the tarot card folks, and that's a good scam, and she's making good money, and I want to make that money instead of her, so let's go ban Harry Potter books, which then finally leads to the irony of, well, bringing right wing and left wing together, because now the left wing does not burn books, okay? But now they are against Harry Potter because of J.K. Rowling and the comments they have made. So don't ban her books and don't burn the books, okay? So, but it's also perfectly okay to disagree with books that you don't agree with, right? You don't have to ban them and you don't have to burn them.
It's so simple. If you have an issue with what is being taught or said or in a book, dispute it. Give your point of view that's actually better. Convince the people that are reading that book and are somehow being indoctrinated to then do what? What is it that people are doing that read those books? A lot of people read the stuff that Hitler wrote. Everyone's read Mein Kampf if they actually studied anything that he did. Did they all become Nazis because they read it? Probably not, maybe a few. I think we're seeing them sprout up here and there. But Is it based off of that, or is it based off of this desire to have a certain level of power? So that's where it comes from. And if your convictions and your principles are so solidified and galvanized in your heart, what are you afraid of? Speak them. Convince people with your words and your logic. Say it. It's not that hard. If you have to get rid of the other point of view by burning it, first of all, in this instance, I think it's just a show, because that's what he promoted it as on the Facebook page and all that. Hey, come check us out. We're those kinds of folks. Don't you want to be those types of folks too? And they found an opportunity here. And I think, as you mentioned, with the possibility of economic downturn in the country, even with the health downturn, the pandemic, that's an opportunity to get desperate people who are looking for some kind of way to be like, I need something to grab a hold of. I can't stand what's happening in my life. I'll reach out to you. And they take advantage of these types of folks.
And JR, that's the great irony here, that he's more worried about the subversive threat, or whatever he calls it, from books, but he doesn't care in the least about coronavirus. He says that Joe Biden is the real virus, and he's told his flock not to take the vaccine, don't wear masks. Coronavirus is nothing. That's nothing but Harry Potter. That's the root of all evil.
Yeah, those are politically suspect. Oh no, that's what Goebbels said. But it sounds incredibly similar, right? Politically suspect. I'll give the last word to two viewers. Chloe Dollar wrote in on YouTube Super Chat. Harry Potter, what year is it? Did they miss the memo that Rowling's on their anti-LGBTQ side now? So it's possible that the book burning, they're like, there's the tarot cards and the critical race theory books, which of course isn't. Okay, and then Harry Potter, wait a minute. Wait a minute, now all of a sudden we kind of like this one. And then Ojam wrote in, quote, we ain't gonna prostitute communion, he said. You know who broke bread with prostitutes? Jesus Christ. Absolutely. And then he added, and I love our member section because of this, tyt.com/join, you become part of the show. And he added, fake ass Christian. Okay, and I'll add, witches please. All right, we got to take a break, right?
Let's take a break. Yes.
Okay, when we come back, no books will be burned, but some right-wingers will be roasted. We'll be back. All right, so more programming notes. Game Busters is up after the bonus episode, so that's twitch.tv/TYT. Super fun, you get to be involved in the games too, and our crew plays along with you guys. Brett also does the Sunday stream, you gotta check that out. It tells you what we're working on for the week, but in a super fun way. That's at 6 o'clock Eastern. Same thing, twitch.tv/TYT. And okay, and don't forget to watch Watchlist. That's noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. You could sign up at tyt.com/watchlist, or everything has to include TYT, Watchlist TYT. So that's whether it's tyt.com, youtube.com, or facebook.com. It's always /watchlist TYT. Okay, so make sure you're checking out JR's show. It's wonderful. Now back to Twitch, where people are giving away stuff like crazy, and you guys are the best for doing that. Shrifty gifted 7 subs. Liv Dragoness and Mind Reaver gifted 5 each. Yeetwood Max said, love you all beautiful people and turtles for the members. We're getting to the Turtles in the post game. You're gonna love that. That's hilarious. Now, speaking of real Christians, we're gonna go to Chaplain Fred in Super Chat, AKA Prayer Dragon. He said, Cenk having David and JR in the power panel is like having a Moab on TYT. David's work is awesome and JR's show is awesome. Go Trojans. Okay.
Go blue. Don't disrespect me.
Yeah, that's right. You know what? Go Fighting Quakers. That's Penn. All right. Fighting Quakers, my favorite ironic mascot. So now I'm going to our members. Future in Doubt said, yes, burn the books, because all throughout history, it's always been the good guys burning books. Great point. Nah, it doesn't really work that way. And then, as he points out, and Perpendicular Time says, how do you unionize only those who work for certainly politically aligned bosses? But we explain in that unionization story, it's because you'd have to go office by office. Okay, and remember, you're almost out of time, so order the Valentine's Day specials at twostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Giving over $20,000 to progressive causes. You'll love it, and it's the best coffee in the world. We'll see you guys in a minute. Back on TYT, Cenk, JR, and David. JR, take it away.
Going. Constitutional scholar Lauren Boebert, she decided to go on Twitter and educate as many people as possible when she tweeted this. The Constitution is not evolving. To say that spits in the face of every single one of our founding fathers, that is. So we're spitting in the face of founding fathers by adding amendments to the Constitution. That was obviously put into perspective by many people who responded to her there, one being Eric Swalwell. He said if this was true, she wouldn't be able to vote. I don't think she thought about that, Eric. I think that slipped through her mind. There was lots of time and lots of space. Also, Carrie Pinbaker said 3/5 of me has questions. Truth. Also, this other user, Greta Grace 20 says, Lauren, the US Constitution has 27 amendments. It is evolving. You're not. Glad I could help clear that up for you. The problem is, Greta, it didn't clear it up for her at all. Also, one other user said, the Congress shall propose amendments to this Constitution, which shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution, Article 5, US Constitution. Quite a low bar to ask GOP representatives to actually read the Constitution before commenting on it, but here we are. Now this is a group of folks, I'm sorry, one more time, because she mentioned the founders. I was just talking about us current people who don't understand what the founders did or said. Thomas Jefferson, he tweeted this.
He tweeted it.
He would have. Some men look at constitutions with sanctimonious reverence and deem them like the Ark of the Covenant, too sacred to be touched. But I know also that laws and institutions must go hand in hand with the progress of the human mind. As that becomes more developed, more enlightened, as new discoveries are made, new truths disclosed, and manners and opinions change with the change of circumstances, institutions must advance also and keep pace with the times. Thomas Jefferson speaking as many things that he was part of putting into that Constitution. So, cool. So this comes from the party that likes to talk about if you don't understand what you're talking about, you have no right to talk about it at all. That's specifically when it comes to guns. So if you don't know how to dismantle and reassemble an AK-47, or if you call it a machine gun when it's actually something else, technically, then you don't get to even talk about how much those machines kill people. So what if you don't know anything about the Constitution? What if you don't know the most basic thing about the Constitution? Should she shut up about it? Should she never mention it again? Should she leave and say, you know what, I think I'm gonna go back to running my restaurant because that's all I know?
JR, good news. You don't have to worry about that because there is no Second Amendment because the Constitution can't evolve. And the Second Amendment is an amendment. We are amending this document, meaning changing it. I literally have to explain that because some right-wingers can't understand it. So, by the way, who did the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments? The Founding Fathers. So, not only did they say in the Constitution that you can amend this Constitution, And then they wrote in their papers, as JR just read to you, you should amend this Constitution. They then amended it themselves. So it doesn't get any more involving than that. But wait, there's more. So that part is obvious to anyone that isn't brain dead. And so, but some other folks on Twitter made some good points that I hadn't thought of, which is unusual. Okay.
Never seen it.
So seriously, for example, someone pointed out in the 8th Amendment, it has a clause against excessive fines. Well, almost any fine today, even traffic, if you run a red light in some places, it costs you $500, right? Well, $500 would have bankrupted almost anyone in the country back when they wrote the 8th Amendment. And it would have certainly been considered an excessive fine. But they didn't amend the 8th Amendment. They left that language in there, and it hasn't been interpreted as based on current times. By the way, like Jefferson told you to. So every word in there is supposed to be interpreted based on current times. In fact, even the right wing to some degree agrees with that. Because back when they did the revolution, they only had muskets. So, but now they say, oh, no, of course they meant semi-automatics and they meant this and they meant my rocket launcher, etc. But wait, it didn't say that, right? Oh, no, it's evolving when I want it to be. Oh, I see.
Like most things.
There was a time in my career when people said that I tweeted things that were, I don't know, mildly offensive, or that I should have somebody check my tweets. And that was good advice. Of course, I didn't follow it, but in any case, I'm not a member of Congress. And what's so remarkable is, when you talk to Republicans in Congress about whether it's Marjorie Taylor Greene or Matt Gaetz or Lauren Boebert, they keep saying, look, we're not surprised that they're stupid. We're not surprised that they are idiots. We are surprised that they don't have anybody on their staff checking this stuff before it goes out. Fine if it goes out of their own mouth in live testimony or live hearing. We can't do anything about that. But your Twitter feed? Come on, have somebody in your staff check your social media before you hit send on that thing.
Yeah, no, but David, with Trump, of course, as you remember, it got funnier because his staff couldn't control him. He'd send out weirdo things that were totally misspelled, weird capitalizations. We all knew that. And then, of course, the legendary Covfefe tweet. And then, but so the part where it got weirder is that they were like, no, he meant it. Everybody knows that needs to know, knows what Covfefe means. And then they would try to copy his tweeting style, but they couldn't do it. So they'd write like a halfway rational tweet, right? And then they would capitalize random words. We're like, we know that's not Trump. That has like an SAT word in it. It's inconceivable that it's him. It makes some degree of coherent sense, even though we don't agree with it, right? And you're not doing it right. So David, they're actually actively trying to write stupid tweets to copy whether it's a congressman or the president in their case. But there's a very serious point in here too. Look, and so it's easy to make fun of Lauren Boebert, but both the Republican and Democratic establishment are against amending the Constitution. So you might think, oh no, that can't be true. No, it's a totally 100% true. I've lived it for the last 10 years. Wolfpack is trying to amend the Constitution to get money out of politics. And in that case, it used to be the Republicans that used to fight us the most. I remember in New Jersey, the Koch brothers sent their lobbyists to fight against Wolfpack and they lost. But now it's the Democratic leadership that is most against amending the Constitution. So the resolution that Wolfpack tries to pass is a convention where the states can go around Washington, D.C. If you get 2/3 of the states to call for a convention, they could propose amendments. 3/4 of the states still have to ratify. So getting an amendment passed is difficult. There's no question about it. It has those two different layers. But Congress is never ever going to propose an amendment to get money out of politics and have 2/3 sign it. We can't get 50 senators, let alone 2/3. So Wolfpack, very logically so, said, oh, good news. The founding fathers were, in this case, geniuses. They built political revolution into the document. Those are called amendments. And they knew that Washington would get too corrupt. So we needed the states to have an avenue to propose an amendment. And Nancy Pelosi and the entire rest of the Democratic Party say, hell no. There's no way we would ever allow a convention. In fact, it got so bad, New Jersey repealed the Wolfpack Amendment because corporate Democrats told them to. So we beat the Koch brothers, but we couldn't beat Nancy Pelosi. So as we make fun of Lauren Boebert, which she richly deserves, understand the actual person most against an evolving constitution and amendments is actually Nancy Pelosi.
It's because they benefit from it. This is their job. I always say this. Politicians' job is to get into office, and once they're in office, to get reelected. Because it's like you re-up your job application every few years, right? Depending on position, right? So you're trying to get back into office, and if this is the way that you exclusively keep your job or keep it minimized to a certain number of people that can even run for your job, why wouldn't you? With any other job, if you like your job, say you're an accountant, you make tons of money and you actually enjoy doing the boring things accountants do, and then there's tons of accountants that are like, I can do that better. You guys want to give me a chance to do that? And he has to actually let me talk to all of your clients about it, which you could, of course. But in this case, they get a chance to put up walls around who can get in because there's certain folks that are controlling them with so much money to prop them up so you can see their face all the time, run their ads all the time, hire the best writers, speech writers, and hire the best staff to promote them. All this comes from these sources of income that are actually running their jobs and telling them what to do. So why would they ever change the rules to make it harder for them to keep their jobs that they would stay in for 50, 60 years?
So defy Boebert and Pelosi and the Koch brothers and join Wolfpack, wolf-pack.com. Why do you think they're against the convention? Because it's the only thing that can work. And the very last thing that anybody in Washington wants is real change. So don't believe their lies. Go and amend the Constitution. The founding fathers would be proud of you. That's exactly what the Constitution calls for. It says, you know how they used to have that thing, steal this book from the old days, right? It literally says, amend this document in the Constitution. So go do it, wolf-pack.com, and don't ever listen to a politician telling you shouldn't.
On Twitter.
Well, and also never listen to the mainstream media when it comes to campaign financing and fundraising. I mean, you'll never hear the mainstream media talk about Wolfpack because the people who want to keep the current system the most, never mind the politicians, are the mainstream media, the networks that make so much money from advertising, from political ads. They're never going to want to cut that off. You can't even have this conversation if you're at a CNN or MSNBC or Fox or the networks because it's not allowed. This is their cash cow.
No, by the way, Rick Sanchez had a conversation about money in politics. We ran it and said, he's in a lot of trouble. He was fired within weeks. They said it was a different reason, but we literally said on air, you can't say that on CNN, they'll fire you. And a couple of weeks later, he was fired. So, and what David's saying is no joke. The last election cycle, there was at least $6 billion spent in political advertising. If you think a multi-billion-dollar corporation is not interested in $6 billion in revenue, you don't know a thing about capitalism.
Yes, and for those youngsters, if you've never heard of Rick Sanchez, it's because we've never heard from him since. Okay, speaking of things you might not hear, and that's because of that reason, by the way, yes. Literally talk about cancel culture. Okay, speaking of things you might not hear of much sooner. According to some ex-insiders that worked for the social media company Getter, that right-wing site that was supposed to be like Twitter, but Getter, they're coming forward and talking about some of these things to talk about how it was run so badly, like as a couple high schoolers just messing around. Now, on December 28th, Getter laid off its entire IT staff. And we did know before, this is this company that had issues with cybersecurity and all that type of stuff. But they're talking about these security threats that will be growing from that. So from the Examiner here, Insider, I'm sorry, 13 staff members, including the company's chief information officer and chief information security officer, were laid off by Getter less than 3 months after they were hired. The 3 former employees, they told, again, the Washington Examiner, but none of the 13 workers that were replaced that were laid off, of course. They said they could no longer employ them, and it's just kind of becoming an empty house. I don't know how they survived the first wave of all the things when people's information was getting put forward and lost, but they survived this far. But one of the top ex-employees didn't hold back about this critique as well. In all honesty, in all my years of doing cybersecurity, I've never seen a company this poorly run from business operations all the way to IT. It looks like a high school operation. And also as an email statement from the Washington Examiner, Jason Miller talked to them and he had this to say. Our position remains strong with over 4.5 million users, and this month we'll be releasing Vision, our short video format, which will compete with TikTok and Instagram Reels. I guess he's feeling pretty comfortable.
Oh yeah, of course it is. So, all right, there's hilarious parts of the story, of course. First of all, we told you it would be run like a high school operation. These Republicans, they talk a big game about capitalism, but they couldn't run a business if their life depended on it. Trump bankrupted 6 different companies. And then he said while he was running, oh no, that's good business.
Makes me smart.
No, I think making a profit is good business. Bankrupting your company is quite the opposite, but they're right-wingers, so they believed him. And so Trump's own media company, savvy right-wingers in Silicon Valley were talking about, oh wow, that could actually, it's a SPAC and it's complicated, but that could actually turn into a multi-billion-dollar corporation before it even does anything, right? And I said on the show, it won't. And the reason is, in the beginning I was worried. I'm like, oh my God, all he has to do is like the bare minimum and he'll fall into $2.5 billion, right? But they can't even do the bare minimum. All they ever do is hire clowns because they're so interested in corruption that hiring a normal professional to do their job to them seems unthinkable. So who did Trump hire for his company to run it? Devin Nunes, one of the dumbest guys in the country. You think Devin Nunes knows how to run a media company? He doesn't even know how to run his own brain. So now this getter is different. Jason Miller tried to get Trump to join, but Trump wouldn't because apparently Miller didn't offer enough money. And so, but Jason Miller worked for Trump for a long time. He's just as dumb as Trump. So here's a great example of it. Jason Miller says in an interview recently, oh no, we're doing great. We got 4.5 million users. And you go on Getter, and Joe Rogan has 9 million followers. Wait, if the entire platform has 4.5 million users, how could Joe Rogan have 9 million followers? Then they're the biggest clowns in the world. All they can think is short-term money, give me the money. Okay, I got money. They take it, they stuff it into their pockets and they run. Okay, you can't run a platform without competent tech. You can't fire your chief technical officer, et cetera. By the way, as always, there is a corruption angle coming, so hold for that, David.
Wow, I was just gonna say, I'm surprised they just didn't pull the plug entirely. You're gonna lay off your tech people and basically invite the entire world to hack the platform that exists. Come on, this is just gonna get even sillier. Pretty soon, yeah, they're gonna have, they're probably gonna double the number of users, but like 1 million of them are gonna be bots from Russia and China that are gonna just mess with them. Never mind the 17 and 18-year-old kids who are stuck in their basement who are just gonna have some fun as well.
Yeah, totally. And so, although on their new TikTok thing, they could burn books and have fun with that. But last thing is the corruption. So it turns out part of the reason they're firing their chief technical officer and et cetera is because there's a Chinese investor that is involved. And so he's involved in a lot of these shady operations, including Steve Bannon stuff. And so apparently he wanted his own Chinese chief technical officer to run it. I bet there won't be any problems there at all. Okay, and the hilarious thing is that the right wing's like, oh, China virus, we're totally opposed to China. Half their media is funded by this mysterious, it's the same guy, mysterious Chinese investor. They're such a funny joke.
Biden just keeps folding to the Chinese.
Apparently Miller and Bannon do. All right, bisexual turtles in the bonus episode for members. TYT.com/join or hit the join button below on YouTube. We'll see you there.
Old school's pitched to me from Cenk. It'll just be me, you, Jesus, Ben, and maybe Michael. And we're like, okay, cool. I can do that every week. As you can see, me, Jesus, Ben.
When you make the order, it says, don't exceed $20.01. So I'll just order literally anything to get it as close to that as I possibly can.
I'm sorry that I ordered $45 worth of food and got an email saying, sir, would you like to rethink that? What are you talking about?
I was in hell.
I was just like, oh my God, the theater's empty, nobody's here. Everyone on screen keeps fucking cursing. Why did I let this happen? And the whole thing looks like it was shot through a glass of milk. My mom's gonna be so mad.
If you're looking for a heart attack, the short way, baby.
Wrong. I did put mayonnaise on it.
I'm the most